So, the way that I like to test out new girlfriends is by making them go on tours with my stepfather. My stepfather really likes to take historical tours. He likes to go to state parks and buy the audio CD that you put in your car. He likes to go to old buildings and read all the signs, and he'll tell you facts that he just read in the sign, even though you're standing right next to him and read the exact same sign along with him. He loves that historical tour shit. So when he came to Philadelphia for the first time was also when he met the first one of my girlfriends he'd ever met before. I was dating this girl, we'll call her Annie, and he and my mom took us out to dinner, and he met her. And my mom and I got to talking about how Annie lived in Fairmount, and she remembered that Fairmount is where Eastern State Penitentiary is. And so we had taken a tour of Eastern State together when she had come here before, and when my stepdad heard about this, he really wanted to go. But my mom and I didn't really want to go again, but Annie, eager to make a good first impression, said that she would go with my stepdad because she'd never gone to the penitentiary before either. So that was pretty cool, because it meant my mom and I got some alone time, and we didn't have to go on this tour again, because Annie went off with my stepdad. And so while I was alone with my mom, she was telling me that she really dug Annie and really thought that I ought to stay with her. And I don't know how much she meant it, because my parents didn't have a lot of confidence in my ability to attract a permanent mate. And I didn't really blame them for that, because I had completely failed to show any signs of an ability to attract a permanent mate. I spent most of my 20s single, and I don't mean playing the field single, I mean playing Ultimate Frisbee single. So they were pretty psyched about Annie, but the problem I had with her is I was completely unattracted to the girl. Now my stepdad didn't agree with me on this. He thought she was really cute. He was like, "She's a really good one, Brady. I think you ought to keep her." I guess they had a nice time in the prison together, but I was totally not into her, and it was funny because it seemed like I was, because we dated in the summer, and I would come over to her house, and I would be really hot from riding my bike, so I'd strip all my clothes off down to my underwear as soon as I walked into the room, but it wasn't because I was trying to turn her on, it was just because I was hot. And then I would hop right into bed, but it wasn't because I wanted her to get in there with me, it's just because she lived in an efficiency and that was the most comfortable place to be. So our relationship eventually fell apart, as it had to, as it was natural for it to. But once the healing of that was done, we weren't together that long. The truth is, we'd really been more friends than romantic, and the relationship had really been more therapy for me than anything else. So we ended up becoming friends again, and I would even say that for a while, Annie was one of my very best friends in the city. We were super tight. In fact, we were so tight after dating that when my mom would come to town to visit me, she liked for us to get together with Annie and hang out with her and just talk about life, because she still really liked her. And Annie would, tell us about the latest alcoholic asshole she was dating, and I would say, "This guy sounds like a real loser," and she would counter by saying, "Yeah, he's the hottest guy I've ever gone out with," and I would say, "No, he's definitely not." So we had a pretty good time, and we had a pretty good relationship. So at one point, I wanted to get a dining room table for my house. And I wanted it for the obvious reason. I wanted a really big dining room table. For the same reason everybody else wants a dining room table, it's because I wanted to start a podcast. And I needed a place for everyone to sit down. So I wanted Annie to come to IKEA with me to make sure I was getting a good table, because that's the kind of thing that she normally liked to do. But she told me she couldn't that night because she had tickets that her work had bought for to go to a Phillies game, and she was riding there with one of her coworker friends. So kind of a bummer, Annie couldn't go with me, so I started thinking about going to IKEA, and I realized that the new Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez movie, the Grindhouse movies, had just come out, and that IKEA was right by Riverside Theater, so I was like, yo, I can go to see the movies after I buy my table. So I call up my friend Ben, who's also friends with Annie, and I'm like, yo, let's go to these movies. And he's like, yeah, cool. So I run and I get the table, and I jam it into my little tiny car, and I run over to Riverside, and we're about to see the movies, and my cell phone rings, and it's Annie. And I'm like, yo, Annie, what's up? I'm about to go to these movies. And she's like, look, I was headed to the Phillies game, and my friend's car broke down, and now we're stuck on 76, and the tow truck's coming, but I need you to come get me and get me off this highway. And I'm like, what? The movie's about to start. Can't you call somebody else? And she's like, look, Brady, I know that you're just down at Riverside. You're the closest person to me, and I am freaking out. You need to come get me. And I'm just like, oh, God, seriously? And she's like, Brady, I have your mother's phone number in my cell phone. if you do not come and pick me up right now, I'm going to call your mother and she is going to be furious. Touche, Annie, touche. So I do go and get her, and I pick her up, but as she gets into my car, I'm like, fine, I'm getting you off this highway, but you're coming to this movie with me and Ben, and I'm not buying your ticket either. Thanks a lot, everybody.